As a man who isn't insecure about body counts and shit like that, I have to say this. There are a lot of men out here who try to push the narrative that any man who cares anything about a woman's sexual past at all is simply insecure. You know, there are these narratives going around that overstimulation doesn't exist. And then people model their lives around how to deal with people who are overstimulated. Now, I take a more balanced approach to it. It's more about quality and context than it is about the actual number. That doesn't mean that overstimulation doesn't exist. And also, the best way to combat overstimulation as a man is to elevate your game and your sex game as high as you can get it. You gotta have toxic dick. Real shit. You know, if you got that, then the higher your sex game is, the higher your game is, then the more sexual experience or the more sexually awakened or open a woman can be, right? Without that being a situation to where she will be unable to be feminine and submissive with you because you don't hit those spots for her. You don't cause her to feel a certain way. But every man has to know what level he's on. Every dude ain't gonna be a sexual alpha male. That's just some real shit. Every dude ain't gonna be a sexual alpha male, right? And if you are not a sexual alpha male like that, then yes, it is important for you to deal with a woman who has maybe a minimal amount of sexual experience, unless you're cool with being a full cuckold. Like, unless you're cool with being a full feminine submissive man. Unless you are cool with that type of shit, then you have to understand that overstimulation is a thing. Now, using the biology first approach, my emphasis, what I say is elevate your sex game and your game to the best level it can be. Take some time, develop your shit, get some experience with it. That way, the threshold of the level of women you can deal with who are sexually open and still end up being in a happily monogamous situation is going to be higher. But that doesn't mean that there still won't be women that you come across that will be, that won't be overstimulated compared to the pleasure that you're going to give them. Listen, I'm telling you some real shit right now. It's not an either or situation. It's not that, sexual experience definitely matters. If she got more than 5, 10, 15 bodies, she's just a hoe. And she'll never be able to be happy and satisfied and settle down. That's not true. But it's also not a matter of, her sexual experience doesn't matter. She could have had 1,000 trains ran on her. And from that perspective, hey, if she likes you, she likes you. She treats you well, she treats you well. See, this is the thing you got to understand. If your program doesn't stretch a woman, then you're not going to know whether or not she's being cooperative or submissive, right? If your sex game don't take her to a next level, right? So, like, let's say you're a man. Your sex drive is you like to fuck twice a week. You got an average dick or a small one, right? And you're providing for a woman. The little bit of sex and a little bit of dick and a little bit of sexual energy that you have to give to that woman is going to be something to where, even if she's not feeling you like that, if you make the pot sweet enough, if you sweeten the pot enough, then she'll do the shit that it takes to please your needs on a regular basis. And she'll still be fucking around with other guys, and you aren't going to be any the wiser. I'm just telling you some real shit, right? If you are not stretching a woman sexually, if you are not, and when I say stretch, I mean just basically you're taking her to places that she hasn't been before, or you're pushing her boundaries, you're pushing her limitations, and you're causing her to raise up to a higher level sexually. If you can't do that with a woman, chances are, right? And it doesn't always have to be a dick size thing. Now, that is a factor. It is a factor. Don't let anybody tell you something different, right? But it doesn't always have to be a dick size thing. It can be the dominance in your energy. It could be the places, the ways, and all that type of shit you like to have sex. But some stuff runs out. And stuff is going to get to a deeper and a deeper level. So you just got to be cognizant that overstimulation is a thing. And overstimulation is a thing for men as well, right? Like, let's say you spend years and years and years watching porn, and porn is not inherently bad. But if you're watching porn from a perspective of thinking about how beautiful and attractive those women are, and that is what turns you on, and some of those women may be fake, some of those women are hired directly for how attractive they are, or you're in a position to where You think that every vulva is supposed to have little labias, all right? Little labia. And you just have unrealistic expectations, right, about how sex works, then you're probably overstimulated, right? Let's say as a man, you can have a history of dealing with women who are crazy, or women with no sexual boundaries, or women who have deeply seated emotional issues and they cope with sexuality. With those type of women, what you have to understand is this: if you don't have the ability to raise a woman up to the level of sexuality that excites you, then you're probably going to be unable to be fully happy and satisfied with a woman because she treats you well. Just because you're attracted to her and she treats you well. I'm telling you some real shit right now. If you're the type of dude who nuts fast because a girl is attractive, because you put pussy on a pedestal, then what you have to understand is this: if you're with a woman who doesn't have that effect on you, unless you've changed your mindset, you're going to be in a situation where you're going to be unable to be fully sexually satisfied with that woman, which is going to cause you to have to make certain decisions to where you're probably going to cheat on that woman. You're probably not going to see her a certain way. Another thing is this, and it's the same thing with women and men, right? If you're coming from a toxic perspective, people, put you in a position, or you put yourself in a position where you're going through emotional roller coasters, that will elevate your excitement about the sexuality. And if you don't have an integrated perspective to where realized chemistry becomes curiosity, where realized chemistry becomes greater than curiosity, where depth becomes greater than novelty, right? If you don't come to that place within your mindset and within your experiences and within your knowledge and your skill set, then it will cause you to be duplicitous or resentful. So you just got to understand that, whatever level you're willing to teach a woman, that's the level of sexuality you should experience. Now, and I'll say this right here too. When it comes to like prostitution and shit like that, sex work, you may be able to spend money on the level of woman of attractiveness that you don't have the game to get. Or you may be able to spend money or spend time and energy on a woman that is already sexually opened up to a certain extent, to where she's able to do things that you don't know how to teach, right? She's able to be more attractive than a woman who you feel you have the confidence in the game to attract and to sustain. So she's going to get put up on a sexual pedestal in your mind. One way you can deal with sexual overstimulation is to get into a dominant sexual ego, right? If you get into a dominant sexual ego and learn how to teach the things that you like, you learn how to get a woman as attractive as you would want to get, regardless of how much money that you have. If you know how to take a woman's beauty off of a pedestal, and what I mean by dominant sexual ego is that when you're having sex with a woman, you're focused on yourself, right? You're focused on giving her pleasure, but you're not really focused on, wow, this pussy just feels so amazing. Now, listen, when you do that, you might set yourself up so you can find a woman who treats you well, and her pussy's like, oh, it's cool. It's cool. You know what I mean? So one thing that you can do is just not focus on how good pussy is and comparing how good pussy is. Because if you get overly into that, then you're going to raise your palate. You're going to raise your standards for something that you can't necessarily control. And something that a woman can't necessarily control. But there's also ways that you can teach and guide and coach a woman through making her pussy better. If she's more aroused, if she's more lusty. I'll say one thing I've experienced is that I've seen more variations in the quality of individual vaginas than I've experienced in a variety of women, right? So that means that when a woman is in that really lusty position, you get her real hot, you get that pussy soupy, marinating like a crock pot, right? You might teach her some Kegels or some shit like that. She learned a grip trick, right? There's different things that you can do, right? Let's say if she's not super, super wet all the time, have her give you some sloppy ass head before you slide it in, right? There's different things that you do, right? If a woman can't really take dick like that, a lot of times that just means that you need to break her in, right? And that sounds very violent, doesn't it? But one thing I've experienced is that oftentimes there's like a second virginity, right? When a woman experiences some real dick, right, for the first time, or at least the first time in a long time, sometimes she might bleed, especially if you blessed, you hitting on her cervix, and the pain starts to mix with the pleasure because of her sexual desire and her submissiveness with you, then after that happens, then she'll be able to take even more dick, right? And then she'll be able to take the dick that she thought she couldn't take and take it with pleasure and take it with ease, and to be able to compensate that. But what you have to understand even there, right, is that if you're dealing with a woman in an open type of situation and she has the freedom to go fuck with other guys, once you break her in, you're giving up something. What you're giving up is this. Before a woman's sexually broken in, she may think she can only take 5, 6, 7 inches, right? But after a woman gets broken in, she could take more than that, right? She might think she can only take about 6, 6.5 inches because that's how deep it can go without really hitting her cervix, right? But after a woman gets sexually opened up, or once that pussy gets, broken in, then she could take a lot bigger than that. It depends on her, and if her cervix is tilted and shit like that. But these are just some things to understand. So if you are the one who is breaking in a woman sexually, and she keeps dealing around, then she can get overstimulated after you when you were the one who took her to the next level sexually before then. So these are just some things to understand. Is let that hurt go pussy. Just let that hurt go dick. Let that hurt go dick is another way you can get overstimulated. Women can get overstimulated. Like if you're a young boy and a grown ass woman comes and starts fucking with you, then you may be unable to be satisfied with a woman who's in a proper age group and age range for you at the age that you're at when it comes to building healthy relationships. I do believe in a certain level of sex positivity. I do believe in a certain level of being realistic, that you're not going to run into virgins like that these day and age. And I don't even have the taste in my mouth of wanting to deal with a virgin, because I ain't trying to set myself up to get lied to, right? But at the same time, we can't pretend as if overstimulation isn't a thing. I would still say that both men and women need to take certain steps to protect their preferences. Some people say that women just love a variety of dick all the time. And for a lot of women, that's true. But for most women who have that perspective, they're already overstimulated, right? They're already in a certain perspective to where they've had such a variety of dick in a short period of time that if they have just one for a certain period of time, they get bored. Now, the thing is this. For a woman with that perspective, she may not be relationship material for you, right? Unless you're a guy who's into more open situations, or unless you can take her above the level that she's at. But even then, there's the mindset aspect of it, of what overstimulation is. There's the mindset aspect of it, of shifting your focus from curiosity to realized chemistry. Shifting your focus from novelty to depth. Shifting your focus to your curiosity being, what is this man going to do to me that I'm already with, versus I wonder what it's like fucking with this new nigga. And dudes can do the same thing, right? If you develop your kinks and your fetishes, all the things that you want, you can teach a woman and train a woman to do all the shit that you want sexually, and she's on your program and she fucking with you the long way, right? If she's able to meet your sex drive and you still feel the need to be fucking around with other women, then you're greedy, right? There's a difference, right? If she can't meet your sex drive and you want to fuck around with other women, then you're not being greedy, right? You're taking pressure off of her, right? You're taking pressure off of her. So what I say in this matter is this, be conscious of what overstimulation is. I know even in times where I was, fuck around with, having my rotations and shit like that. And my mindset, the way I dealt with it was like this. I could have had more women, but my mindset was always to limit the amount of women in the rotation so that I can mitigate the need to fuck with other guys. Not that I'm so afraid of a woman fucking with other dudes, but it's just more so a factor of mitigating the risk of sexually transmitted infections, mitigating the risk of her getting pregnant by somebody, mitigating the risk of overstimulation, right? So what I say is this. For me, I would always limit the number of women I would allow to be in my rotation, not only for the sake of mitigating the need to fuck with other guys, but also from the perspective, and there were women who were, and I knew they were, and I didn't have an issue with it. So I'm not saying that from a place of insecurity. I'm just trying to talk some real shit to y'all right now. But the other aspect of it was not trying to get myself overstimulated with variety. And yes, I've had multiple women in the same day and shit like that. But what I'll say is this, what we got to understand is this: if you get too overly caught up in the idea of, oh, I want this pussy on this day, this pussy on this day, this pussy on this day. If your goal is eventually to have a marriage or a long-term relationship of some sort that's monogamous, then if you get overly caught up in the idea of wanting a variety of pussy all the time, then you're going to be overstimulated to the point where you're going to feel like it's going to be unnatural to you to sleep with one woman for an extended period of time. So, you know, this is Brody talking about overstimulation. I'm out. As a man who isn't insecure about body counts and shit like that,